bastard. Hey everyone, Nomad here. So, recently I've noticed in small corners of the interwebs, there are people that either want to play Escape From Tarkov, but don't want to buy it because the game looks too intimidating, and also new players that are contemplating giving up because, although Escape From Tarkov is fun and addictive, it has a really steep and unforgiving learning curve. So I've made a list of tips that aren't in any particular order, just to try and help those wannabe Tarkovians. Map knowledge is vital. Get to know your flanking routes, your extracts, scav movements, and high player population areas for each map. The best way, in my opinion, to do most of that is to actually play offline, until you get comfortable with the map, or maps. And I recommend running one map only for your first few hours to really soak in that knowledge. For the highly populated player areas though, I'd probably say that it would come down to the quest locations and the military base, as everyone will really be wanting to get that sweet loot from there. And once you start playing online, you'll eventually get some understanding of player spawns. But if you don't have time to play offline, you can always just search YouTube for extraction guides. There's plenty out there. Utilize your scav runs. Between offline raids, I'd recommend going onto the map you just explored as a scav. You'll get a taste of PvP and you might get some loot. Just don't trust your fellow player scavs. Some people are dicks and don't respect the wiggle of friendship. Which leads into tip number 3. Always respect the wiggle. Side note, don't try it on PMCs. It rarely ends well. Learn the flea market. For ages, I personally neglected the flea market. I just didn't really understand it at all. And to be honest, I'm still learning. But JDog the Wise has a great money-making video for the flea market. You can find a link to that in the description, and I highly recommend you that you check it out. Finding a weapon that you are comfortable using is very important, because not all weapons are equal. But the good thing about Tarkov is the time to kill can be super quick. Especially early game when armor is rare, although that might change with the addition of millbase. Now, one of my favorite guns to use is the Vepa 136. The 7.62x39 PS is very powerful early game, and can still be a pretty decent round in the late game. You just have to play smarter. There is a link down below to the Battle Buddy app by Veritas. So far, I found it to be very helpful. It has ammo charts, it has weapon comparisons. It's a really great tool. Now, this rule also applies to gear, and although there's always going to be a meta with all the items, it all comes down to personal preference. But again, JDog the Wise has some amazing guides on gear, ammo, weapon builds, and the flea market, so go check him out. The link is in the description. I'll also link Veritas because he made the Battle Buddy app and it is amazing. This is not sponsored. Okay, someone's... Gear fear, it affects almost every Tarkov player. Why? At some point. And two ways I've combated this is to just sell that modded M4 that's been collecting dust in my stash and use the money to buy a budget loadout. You know, after I get a kill on an enemy with that loadout, I'll then dump my gear in a bush that's not in the immediate area and use the loadout that my kill had. So that way if I die, I'm most likely going to get my stuff back on insurance. Which brings me to my next point. you should always insure your gear. Unless you're going to run labs, that map has no insurance returns, so don't bother. I learned that the hard way. Prepare is the cheapest but takes the longest, and Therapist is dearer but is quicker. So if you know you'll be away for a few days, go for Prepare, because you'll most likely get that stuff back when you return, whereas Therapist would have yeeted your gear out of existence. When you get a kill, especially if it's a PMC or a player scav, do not loot straight away. Take 2 to 3 minutes to make sure the area is clear. Always think there is more than one, because 9 times out of 10, well, that there is. Also, loot fast. Use the Control and Alt keys in conjunction with left mouse clicks to either stash or equip items, but just note that you can't equip an item in a slot that's not empty. Remap the delete key to something else so you can discard things much quicker. I have a Razer Naga Hex V2 and I've mapped delete to one of the top mouse buttons, and this has decreased the amount of time it takes for me to loot, which has increased my survival rate. Don't always rush into a gunfight. This is definitely situational, but really you want to catch the enemy off guard while they are looting, healing, or repacking mags. There is no point engaging 2 squads of players when they can do the work for you. Learn to recognize the sound of each gun and engage accordingly. If the enemy has an SMG, try to engage at a distance. If they have a Vepa Hunter, just exit the game because chances are you're already dead. For those that made it this far, here's a bonus tip for you. If you aren't a solo player and prefer to run in a squad, always let your buddy or buddies know where you are or what you've heard or what you're seeing in relation to combat. And if you die, tell your buddy where you are, where you think the shots came from that killed you, and then turn your microphone off so you don't get your buddy killed by being a distraction. Telling them, get my gun, that's not helpful. It just gets people killed. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you. I appreciate it. And if you like the video, can you please gently stroke the button of approval and lightly pound the endorse box. I stream most evenings on Twitch, the link will be in the description, and I post my schedule on Twitter. The link to that is also down below. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you in Tarkov.